Hello everyone. I think nobody wants to be the bad guy who breaks a code build. The Kuttl project makes it easier to set up and manage local test environments for any Kubernetes objects. It can help you run more intensive local tests to prevent broken builds. Let's give a warm welcome to Lan.
Good day, everyone. My name is Ram. Thanks for having me. Today's topic is who has broken the build. How many of you are developers here? Okay, good to know. Managers? Okay. Okay, so nobody wants to break a build. But what can you as a developer do to avoid being a bad guy? How can project leads, especially the managers, enable their teams to reduce their builds? Have you come across anyone like this in your team? Okay, the manager says who has actually broken the build. Then the developer would say, I don't know. I would check, probably me, who has actually broken the build. Let me check and come back, okay? A quick introduction about me. Myself, Ram Mohan Rao. I'm a senior software engineer at R&D Bangalore, India, JFrog India. I'm passionate about open source and also love playing table tennis. A quick introduction about my company and what they do. This is quite related to my talk. Okay, so let me give a quick introduction about my company. Okay, so JFrog. JFrog is founded in 2008 in Netanya, Israel. It's a public listed company. We have around 1,100 employees across 9 and expanding, 9 locations, 7 countries. We have around 8,000 plus customers. Most of them are Fortune 100 companies, and 70% of those Fortune 100 companies use our products. Okay, and most of these products are OSS to get to Kubernetes, primarily focused on hybrid, which can be deployed on-prem as well as on SaaS. We have a main product called Artifactory, and it's one of the suite of JFrog platform. Okay, and more importantly, we contribute to the community, open source community. Okay, so I think everybody uses software, and everything that runs on the software currently. Okay, maybe think transport, MRT, for instance, everything runs on the software. And I would say every company is a software company. Either they produce a hardware or, okay. Let me cite an example for you. Have you ever tried Tesla? So, do software upgrades matter? Yes. One second, let me go back. Okay. So, it says that if you use a Tesla, during the upgrade process, you will not be able to drive the Tesla vehicle, okay, for probably 1 hour 40 minutes. So, so software upgrades are important, and JFrog's mission is to power all the software updates in the world. Okay, so we have all the logos that you have are our customers. Software, technology, banking, engineering, space, education, and everywhere. And we also have an ecosystem where we contribute to the open source community, working with these companies exclusively. Okay, so let's get to our talk. Okay, all about software upgrades. to release faster. Okay, so let me quickly give you an insight how the software development has actually evolved. So probably in 2000, most of you have actually seen a waterfall model where you do a release probably after 6 months of the design freeze or the development is done. Then you move on to an agile model where you develop and probably use a sprints mechanism to deliver software within probably weeks or months. Okay. Then we had a new concept called DevOps, which is primarily collaboration between dev and operations team to release faster. The main objective here is to do a multiple releases in a day, if possible. Okay. So, okay, let me quickly give you an agenda of my talk. I would like to dedicate larger time of mine into a demo, and I have a very bad internet. Okay, so bear with me. So I might want to quickly jump through the slides and run that, and then come back to the actual slides. Okay, so quick. So I think most of you are developers here, and they see a pain in most of the development environment. So I would like to talk about the development environment there. Then, how many of you run tests locally? Not the unit tests, end-to-end test. Okay, it's very difficult, I would say, to set up an end-to-end environment locally. So I would actually try to simplify that. And we were evaluating a couple of tools for that. And we found Kuttl is more like a Kubernetes test tool that can be used for testing or end-to-end testing locally as well. Okay, and a quick demo and a summary of things. In this session, a quick history of our testing challenges and what led us to Kuttl and the benefits of the new testing approach that we have, which is easy and with minimal investment, completely open source. Okay, and how we combine Kuttl and the CI pipelines to have a streamlined testing and few broker builds. That's the agenda. Okay, so let's get. Okay, let me quickly give you the ideal development environment. Okay, so it should be a single-click setup using an automation, develop and test locally. Okay, the main challenge that most developers would have is they develop it on a Mac or on Windows, and the production environment is primarily Linux, where they deploy, or a Kubernetes environment. But they don't have very similar environment with production environment. So the challenge is to have a very similar environment as production environment. Okay, how can we achieve that? Okay, so the dev environment basically, okay, when I join a new team or a new company, the first thing that I do couple of days is to go to a wiki page, see the development setup, copy those things, try it on my machine. It would take couple of days at least to have my dev setup, which is actually wasting our developer productivity over there. Okay, so using automation, which can actually solve this using some scripts, which you can use to set up. Okay, so the benefits would be no manual steps, saves time, and quick reload. When I say quick reload, test it, code it, deploy it, and test it locally. Okay, and the equivalent is dev environment should be as same as production environment to reproduce the production issues at ease. Okay, okay. Let me have a quick problem statement that we have currently. So whenever I create a new feature branch or a new development, I would first have a new feature branch on my local, add some code, then add some unit test, then raise a pull request. Okay, which would also involve some unit test as part of my code and a push to a Git repository. Okay, that's where the end-to-end test would begin on a CI/CD server, remote CI/CD server. But I see a problem over there. Okay, say the end-to-end tests fail for any reason due to some environment issue or your code issue, then the cycle of coming back to the development is huge. See, when the tests fail after running for a couple of hours, then the developer would know that his test has actually failed. Then he would do a commit again and push the code again. Since this cycle of round trip continues, and is there any way to actually reduce this? Okay, so you can see remote end-to-end tests. So you can see here, developer codes, then writes some unit test, and then raises a pull request based on those unit tests. On the remote CI/CD server, we have this end-to-end test running them. If something fails over there, he would goes back to the development and then fixes them. If everything looks good, then a merge request is merged to the master branch or the main branch. So is there any solution for this? So we were evaluating a couple of tools and we found this can be done using end-to-end test locally. Okay, so instead of doing an end-to-end test, we use local end-to-end test and commit the changes to a feature branch locally and then run those tests locally. There is no need of actually having any environment which is outside the development environment or the developer machine. Okay, so the advantages over here is, say that if a test fails, he would locally commit and amend that commit and then run those tests locally. Okay, there is no need of a Git repository to push. Okay, this way reduces the round trip and fixes the issues in and saves a lot of time. So let me quickly recap what I meant here. So you can see here, code development unit test, we would bring down these end-to-end tests locally so that the developer would run those tests locally. Okay. A quick introduction of Kuttl. Okay. I might want to, due to the time duration that I have, I would quickly run those end-to-end tests on my local. I would show you the results, but let me quickly run those in the meantime. Give me a second. You can see here. So I would use a quick Kuttl kubectl Kuttl test, and this is my environment, and I'm exporting this kubeconfig file to see my test on a console. Okay, let me quickly switch back to the context. Let those tests run. For the sake of time, I've run those tests. I would come back again. Okay. So what is Kuttl? Kuttl is a Kubernetes test tool. So in talking to our teams, we discovered that most of the developers don't run sufficient integration test or end-to-end test on their local environment because it's very difficult to set up and administer those environment in an efficient way. Okay, due to the resources or anything. Say we have hundreds of developers in a team, and they would like to all have an end-to-end setups. So most companies, what they do is they would have an environment and ask the developers to create a pull request and let those tests run. Okay, say that end-to-end environment fails due to some environment issues, the developers are blocked in merging their pull request. Okay, so that's why we decided to rethink our entire testing process in cutting down headaches and valuable time wasted. So we have discovered Kuttl, more like connecting Kuttl to our CI build has actually saved us time. So this is a clear use case that we have solved in our company, and we would probably want to present it to the community as well. Okay. So Kuttl is a Kubernetes test tool. It is a CNCF approved project, graduated project. It's actually part of Kudo Builder. So Kudo Builder was primarily used for writing operators, Kubernetes operators. So for testing those Kudo Builder operators, they developed a tool called Kuttl. So it's primarily for writing tests, mainly designed for testing operators, controllers. It can declaratively test any Kubernetes objects, which it is YAML based. So if you are a Go developer, Java developer, or Python developer, you don't need to worry about it. Just configure those tests in a YAML file and assert those testing conditions. which would accelerate the end-to-end test environment in a Kubernetes, because you are not writing any code over there, just configuring the setup. Okay. Then how do you quickly install Kuttl? If you are a Mac user, you can do a brew tab, kudo builder tab, and then use brew install Kuttl CLI. And if you are a Linux user, kubectl crew. Crew is an install manager for kubectl, and you can install crew install. Kuttl also provides an API integration. Say that you are a Go developer and would like to integrate into your Go code, you can use go get GitHub kudo builder Kuttl. Okay. Okay. So Kuttl is for any application admin who wants to actually automate any Kubernetes environment or to test his application on multiple versions of Kubernetes. Okay. And if you want to, as a developer, to test operator without writing Go code. Okay. Okay. So let me quickly explain. Kuttl has 3 configurations. One is the test suite. So you can see kind. This is a CRD, custom resource definition, kind test suite, and I would use a kind, start kind as false, which would mean I would use any existing Kubernetes cluster. So kind is more like a open source cluster on Docker desktop, so you can use that as well. And you can see the name specified is a test directory where my test would be run and the commands used to. So you can see there is a timeout of 300 seconds. Say if your test doesn't pass within that 300 seconds, Kuttl would give you a failure. Okay. So first one is the test suite. Next one is the test step, where you can see kind test step. Even this is a CRD, and commands that you would use. For example, for my test case, JFrog Artifactory, I'm trying to install that and see it actually installs it. Okay. And there is an assertion step. So once you install any stateful application, I am checking whether that application has one replica, read replicas as one. So this is the assertion test that I have. So once we have a suite, test step, and an assertion step as part of the package. Okay. So let me quickly give an example how this would look like, the structure would look like. You can see here, I have a demo. Under that, I have a test, and there is an end-to-end tests folder. There are 4 tests as part of my, 2 tests as part of my, on my screen. You can see one is a quick install step and another is a scale step. Have you ever used Flyway? Okay, Flyway is an open source tool used for database migrations. So it has a structured way of executing those SQLs. Okay, say you want to run 10 SQLs, so you would version them as 1 to 10. Okay, and Flyway would execute those scripts before your application actually starts. It's more like configuring the database SQL scripts. So Kuttl similarly uses that one where you can actually specify 0001 as the first step, and then an assertion on top of it. Okay, so let me quickly get back to the demo and show you what's happening on the demo side. Okay, so I have an application. I want to actually test whether that application installs perfectly. Okay, and I would like to see 3 or 4 scenarios. Kuttl by default support parallel execution. You can run 8 parallel steps actually. So if you don't define anything, it is assumed that Kuttl would run 8 parallel steps. Okay, so for my demo, let me quickly show you my screen. Can you see my screen? Right. So as part of my demo, I have 4 tests. Okay, one is the default install test. There is a Artifactory comes up with a split architecture as well. So this is another test you can think of. Another is a scale test where you would actually increment the replicas, and an upgrade test. Say if you want to install the Artifactory 1 version and then do an upgrade. Okay, so we have 4 tests, and you have this Kuttl Kuttl test.yaml where you define the suit. So the context that I've set is I'm using a kind cluster and having a kind context as this events, and then I've actually increased the timeout, okay? Because I need to download those images and run those. So I've increased it to more time, but let's see whether the download would finish within the time that we have, okay? So at the end of the day, you can also specify a report, how you would configure these tests. So when the tests run, if you want like to have these 4 test report as an XML, you can specify Kuttl test --XML or a JSON report, okay? So let me quickly go back to the console. Hope you guys can see my screen. Okay. So what I've done is, you can see here, I've just run and executed a command called Kuttl, kubectl Kuttl test, which would actually set up a kind cluster, and it actually has a Helm repository, okay, and then running those tests. So you can see here, there are 4 tests that it would run, which is an install default, install split, scale, and an upgrade test, okay. And what it would do is, it would create 4 namespaces and install these applications, 4 applications, 4 tests into 4 different namespaces. Once those tests are done successfully or failure, it would actually destroy those clusters as well. So everything happens locally. So you are running these tests locally. So you are actually creating an application and then testing this locally. Okay. So let me quickly use a tool called K9s. You can use, if you're a Mac user, brew install K9s. K9s is a graphical view of Kubernetes cluster, and you can actually see. So let me quickly execute this command and see. Okay, so then let me switch the context to the namespace. See here. So we have, 1 second, let me minimize this. So you can see 4 namespaces have been created by Kuttl, and each one of them would run those tests. So you can see, you can do a describe of the pod and see the status where it is. Okay, it is trying to pull the image. Okay, so I have 4 test cases that would take. Okay, see the time has been 10 minutes, but we would wait for a few more minutes to see the install would happen. Otherwise, what Kuttl will do is, if the timeout is set, then if the test don't run or failed or unable to run within that time span, it would actually declare those tests as failure. Say that the images doesn't exist or some issue with that. That way, we are pretty sure that our Kuttl would actually run for only that specific time. Okay, let those tests run. Okay, you can see in the logs how those tests would be actually. So when it is trying to install, so this is an upgrade test. So it is running an Helm upgrade install artifactory using this namespace. So Kuttl would auto-generate a namespace and run those tests. And these are the parameters that I would pass as part of the Helm command to set specific version, which are actually not needed. Okay. So let me quickly switch back the context and go back to the documentation around how to use this. Okay. So as I said, this project is CNCF approved project as part of the Kudo Builder. So you can see a GitHub page called Kudo Builder, under which a project called Kuttl, which is an active, we have an active development, and JFrog doesn't work on this project, by the way, and we actually use this for doing our end-to-end test locally as well as in our CI environments. Okay, so every quarter there might be 3 to 4 releases of Kuttl, so which has an active development status as well. And there is a detailed documentation called kuttl.dev, where you can see and it has few example how can you use a CLI usage, as well as if you want to integrate with an API, and there are quick test environment setting up, tips and tricks, and other. You can probably refer to this. So let me go back to my slides, and I would return back to the demo once we have those images downloaded. Okay. Okay. Sorry, bear with me for. Okay. So we have. Okay, so as I've said, Kuttl documentation, you can refer Kuttl dev docs, and there is a GitHub reference as well, and which has an active Slack channel as well in Kubernetes Slack called Kudo, and I've actually referred K9s. You can actually refer to that GitHub page where you can download and see the Kubernetes environment. A quick summary. Kuttl is an open source tool which can be used for local end-to-end testing, which would mean if a test broke, you can actually fix them, okay, as a developer, which would mean few broken builds. We have seen quite a large improvement in our tests with this tool, which would mean release faster, okay, which would mean happy developers and eventually customers as well. Our goal is quietly aligned with what we do using Kuttl as well, okay, to power the software upgrades around the world, okay. Probably you would use an iPhone and an Android. Google, Apple uses JFrog's products internally to the power updates to the edge devices, okay. So whatever you push an update on your iPhone or an Android, backend is supported by JFrog, okay. Any questions? I would switch back to the demo and see where it is. In the meantime, I'm happy to take few questions if you have. Okay, so let me switch back.
Question?
Yes.
Let me handle this. You can use this hand.
Sure. So let me go back to the demo and see where it is. Still downloading. Sorry, the Wi-Fi is I'm connected via my mobile phone internet.
Any question?
Okay. But a report would look like this. Just for a summary, how it would look like.
Hi, is it available to inquire some question?
Sorry, could you?
May I inquire two question?
Sure, go
Sure, okay. Because from my past experience, we use the Cucumber tool and the TypeScript to describe the test scenario.
Sorry, not audible. Could you be louder?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no. Now it's better. Please go ahead.
Okay. In my past experience, we use the Cucumbers tool and TypeScript to describe the test scenario to be the end-to-end test. So how could we combine this tool to this code tool so we can use API integration this way, or we don't need to? This is enough.
Okay, so Kuttl can be used for any environment, not only for Kubernetes as well. Say that you would like to run those tests. Say, for example, you already have a testing infrastructure. What you can do is execute those tests from a test step, okay? And Kuttl would do an assertion and do the assertion in using a command. Say, for example, you are doing an API testing, okay? Or the endpoint testing of an API, version 2 or anything, the response. Say you would use a curl command or something to do a test, and you are expecting a response. The response can be added as part of the assertion and verify whether it works. So you can actually integrate with your existing setup using some shell scripts.
And use this code tool to help us to deploy.
Kuttl too?
Yeah. This will combine together and help us to deploy on the Kubernetes platform, like.
Yeah, primarily this is used for Kubernetes, but it can be used anywhere. Because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is Helm install. Helm install is on Kubernetes. If you would like to deploy it on a VM, you can still use that.
Okay.
I mean, replace that step.
Okay, great. Oh, okay. Second question.
Sure.
Because I have is in touch with the JFrog before, and I know that we use the JFrog to do the image scanning, and I remember that its architecture is consists of Artifactory, X-Ray, and PostgreSDB, and the build server. So right now we use this tool. Is it standard architecture, or and do we need to connect to the Tecton or the Jenkins this pipeline tool, or we have the local build server is enough?
Right. So I think probably you've used Artifactory and X-Ray. So those are for scanning. And say that you would like to integrate. So you can actually hook up this with Jenkins and run those tests. Once those tests are successful, you can promote those artifacts to Artifactory and then to X-Ray for scanning.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Due to time reason, so one more question.
Hello. My
Hi.
question is not really related to the topic, but I want to ask which tool do you use for transfer the speech into the text on the top? Is it a model or application?
Okay.
Yeah.
No, this. Okay. Okay. This is iTerm, terminal iTerm. Okay. On top of it, I've used K9s to view this. K9s is the graphical view, and the terminal is iTerm. Okay, let me quickly go back and show you.
Actually, the question is, I need to mention the case one. I will tell you later, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So you can see the logs over here. It has created and successfully downloaded all those images. Post that, you can see all those namespaces have been deleted. Okay, so it's just terminating those with a timeout kind of a thing. So post that, when you look at the logs, or you can, as I said, there would be a report that you can probably see, which would actually give you, give me a second. So a report would look like this. Say you have run 2 tests with end-to-end test. One is install or scale. This is the previous example. Okay, and it would give you a report. Similarly, you can have an JSON report where you can integrate and see it on your pipeline, saying that how many tests have passed or failed. Okay. Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thanks everyone for joining my talk.
Thanks, Lan, for great sharing. Okay.